Hello and welcome to another Terrace Podcast YouTube special edition, I think we're calling them. I'm your host today, Euan Taylor, and I'm joined by Joel Sked. Hello Joel, how are you?
Yes, I'm good. I'm good. Apprehensive. Got a foster dog in the background here who is just ready to stir shit up. So bear with me if that happens. But yeah,
Excellent. Well, I'm sure the viewers would probably prefer to see a dog than us. But anyway,
yeah.
we are here anyway.
Hear the dog as well.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. But we are here to discuss maybe was it the game of the season so far? Perhaps Aberdeen 3, Motherwell 3, and then we might touch later for those listening on the usual Patreon means we might touch on the other game of last night being the Rangers Ross County game. But we'll start certainly with the Aberdeen game. Joel, you watched this. Was the game as good as the 3-3 scoreline would suggest?
I would say the first 50 minutes were brilliant. It was, and then kind of just died away, and it was like it was weird. It was just the kind of the peaks and troughs of it. You had Aberdeen been an absolute disaster, and we'll come on to talk about their setup, how they started soon. But you had Aberdeen a disaster. They were like, it's almost like they were waiting to go 3-0 down before responding. And then Motherwell, it was almost like they were waiting to get pegged back to 3-3 before deciding, going, okay, we better do something that will mean that we get away with a point. So yeah, it petered out. It petered out in the end. I'm going to say in the end, in the kind of the last half hour or so. So yeah, it wasn't a complete match, but certainly the first half or the first 50 minutes were bonkers. And I think I said in the chat while watching it was like, you can't really analyze this game because it was just sheer chaos. And for the majority of that 50 minutes when all the goals were scored, it was as if the teams were playing like there was 2 minutes left on the clock and they both needed a goal to survive relegation.
Yeah, it did seem pretty mental. I suppose the best place to start would be Warnock's team selection, which was wrong, shall we say?
It was. I don't know what the best way to describe it is. Naivety, arrogance, just sheer stupidity to play a back three with two guys who are probably more fullbacks than they are centre backs. Yes, they can play in a back three, but if I was having Nicky Devlin and Jack McKenzie are the two ones I'm talking about. I think you can get away with playing one of those in a back three as long as your two other centre backs are competent centre backs. But then that wasn't the worst decision. The worst decision was playing Shayden Morris and Jamie McGrath as wing backs. I mean, you've seen it for the first goal of the penalty. Shayden Morris getting himself into a position where it's like, you have never played wing back or defended in your life. What are you doing, sir? And then Jamie McGrath, he is like his best position is number 8/number 10. He is not someone you want to be going up and down the line. On the left-hand side, when his stronger foot is his right, and he was just looked so out of place. Just like the whole team looked so out of place. And you had Paul Vara as well, who was effectively a support striker to Bojan Miovski. And it was weird when Warnock, to his credit, made a double change after half an hour, and Polvara came off, and he was almost like speaking to Warnock for longer than substitutes normally speak to their manager. So that was interesting. I don't think he wasn't like they weren't shouting at each other. It was almost like a mature discussion, and it was like Warnock saying, perhaps Warnock just going, "Sorry for taking you off. I made a complete pig's ear of that." But I just couldn't believe it when you seen the 11 now. So you're like, how is this quite working? And then you've seen it on then you've seen it actually laid out on the pitch, and you're thinking, well, that's definitely not going to work. That's just like I said, stupidity, and that's exactly what Aberdeen got. Because I think I've seen a couple of the Aberdeen Twitter accounts I follow. They made the point, brilliant that we got back to get a point, but you shouldn't have been in there. The reason they were in the first place was. I'm saying we. This is me talking as if I am them. That it shouldn't have got into that situation in the first place because the formation, the lineup should have been a lot more cohesive and better. And again, I think Aberdeen fans have realised that they can't really play a back three with this team. That's where Barry Robson entered, had a lot of struggle, certainly domestically, and Warnock going back to that, I just thought it was a bit daft. And then you see someone like Angus McDonald coming on after half an hour. He's a pretty average defender, but he did well last season when he came in, and he's a good average defender. He's a Premiership defender who will head it. He's the type of that when you're in the bottom six, you need these guys, and that's he came on and steadied the ship as he changed formation.
Yeah, I think the use of McDonald this season's been a bit odd, really, or the lack of use of him, given how Matty Pollock's probably the star last season in terms of the Aberdeen defence, but McDonald wasn't that far behind him, and he's just been bombed out completely. Or not completely. I mean, he's played now and again, but he's certainly not been a first pick. And without Rubezic and Jensen to not start with them last night seemed odd. But I suppose we should also cover. Sorry, what were you going to say about?
I was just saying, and the fact is that he's been so underused, despite all three of the other nominal centre backs have been. I've not really done brilliantly. Probably Gartman's maybe the best out of three, but even him, seen with the second goal, Theo Bair just completely lost him. Really, some really good movement from him, but Gartman's really poor defending in terms of awareness.
Yes, yeah, we should probably cover Motherwell and how they started the game. Impressive, considering. I mean, if anyone that watched them on Friday, it was like two different football teams. Yeah,
absolutely. Again, it's hard to read into how good Motherwell were in that first half an hour, just because of the haphazard nature that was Aberdeen and their setup, and you just wonder how much that was that helped Motherwell, because as soon as the going got tough, they just looked a wee bit all over the place defensively. I don't think they're a good cohesive unit. Obviously, there's a lot of question marks over Kelly, but the way they attacked with plenty of purpose. There was a lot of invention. Vale started quite well before really tailing off. Wasn't overly impressed with his performance, and then you had Bear in the renaissance continues. But I was really impressed with Georgie Gent up and down the left hand side, putting a couple of really dangerous deliveries. Bear almost scored before he got his second, and Motherwell second. And they seemed to have a real nice balance to them, but I think it said a lot about where Motherwell are and the fragility that they still have, just their reaction to Aberdeen turning the screw and not having to do too much to get back into the game.
Yeah, it did feel like very much a game of maybe, 2/3, 3/3 for Adam Devine in particular. 3/3, but for Adam Devine, obviously took his goal nicely, and I thought, obviously I'm sort of watching him through Rangers specs, but I thought when he came on against Morton, he looked like Motherwell's best player, and then another sort of encouraging start, I suppose, in this game, and took his goal very well, but then he didn't defend on two occasions very competently whatsoever. For both of Duke's goals, I thought obviously the first one he sort of loses Duke completely, and then the second one he just gets horribly pinned and possibly scores an own goal. I wasn't quite sure if that helped him, if that would count as an own goal or not, but it just sort of portrayed maybe the issues you have when you sort of pick up a sort of young loanee that's not played that much football.
Yeah, I just thought in general he was relatively weak, and that kind of showed it in a nutshell, and it kind of just made a fool of any Rangers fan who doubted Tavernier. It's like, oh, the Divine, he could slot in it right back for Rangers. Miles away from that. Away from that. Yeah, but I think Motherwell. I think the game as a whole was an indication of the league as a whole, especially in that middle third, where it's mental when you look at it, and it's mental when you consider how far away, like Aberdeen and Hibs are from St Mirren and Kilmarnock. Take away Hearts, just how far away from Kilmarnock and St Mirren they are. And then you've got this pack of St Johnstone, Motherwell, Hibs, Aberdeen and Dundee who can't really get their act together or consistently. They all have real flaws.
Yeah, they're all really flawed, aren't they? Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I mean, because I think if you look at the Aberdeen team or squad in particular, like, they've obviously got some exceptional players for Aberdeen, and they've got some of Miovski. They've probably got the best Aberdeen player since, I don't know how far back you'd have to go. Maybe since Aberdeen were actually good, but they have a lot of dross as well, and that's why they are. Shane Morris is probably a classic example of it, isn't it? Like he's not an Aberdeen level player, and I think they're starting every game with 2 or 3 probably players that shouldn't even be at the club. Never mind starting games, and yeah, it's probably where the consistency. I mean, as well as the inconsistency they've had in the dugout, which doesn't help. And I don't think Warnock's a good appointment. I know a lot of people sort of got on board with it, but I'm not convinced that it's a great idea. I don't know what you think about that, but yeah, I just think Aberdeen, there are reasons for where they are, and it's because they have players capable of better things than Aberdeen, but they've also got quite a lot of players that are lucky to be there in the first place.
Yeah, I agree with the majority of that. I look at that the starting lineup last night was, I think you could have replaced Morris in the start. So the starting lineup, I think you could replace Morris with McDonald and played quite a narrow back four, and it looks a lot better. It's probably more cohesion. But the big issue that Aberdeen have is they've got all these players, but they don't actually really have any kind of good wingers. So Morris is probably their only winger on the books, and again, I don't think he's never really shown anything to suggest that he's going to be a consistent Aberdeen player. The other one that they had on their books was Vicente Bezwayan, who I think's got a lot more quality than Morris, but for one reason or another, it's just not worked out, and he went back to the Dutch second tier, I think it is.
Yeah,
and yeah, I think they've got, similar to Hibs, in that they've got a lot of talent in the squad, and a lot of talent can win the games individually, but because there are squad imbalances, imperfections, they don't use this kind of phrase before, cohesive unit. And he's like, that's not a team that's going to go on a big unbeaten run. And I think that's the issues with Hibs and Aberdeen at the moment, is they're good quality, they'll win games, but they won't do it consistently because they have got deficiencies within the squad, whether it's in the centre of defence, or if it's a balance of attacking players, or there's too many of the same players. So yeah, it is. You look at it and think, Miovski, second best striker in the league, in my view, obviously. Leighton Clarkson, we'll get him. Leighton Clarkson, like Conor Barron, Jimmy Graff, Graham Shinnie, all players I like. I'm not sure about Danny Povara, but there's good enough players there, but it's just been, since the summer, it's just been a bit of a mess for Aberdeen, and they just don't look, for all the money that's been spent across the last couple of seasons, all the transfer they've done, it still looks like a team that still needs quite a bit of surgery when we get to the summer, especially with a new manager coming in.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I suppose it'll be this time, because and you don't know what offers they had, but they obviously, if they did have offers in the summer, they should have sold Duke, and they didn't.
Yeah.
And this summer they have to sell Miovski. They absolutely have to, for good money, but they have to sell him while the stock's high, and then and that should give them a bit of cash to sort of rejig the whole squad, because it needs it. And yeah, I just and Warnock. You wonder if will Warnock cause more trouble than it's worth having him in this spell. I don't know what you thought. I mean, obviously, he did make the change, which rescued the situation. But do you think this whole thing is a good idea or not?
I've been, like I said in the last YouTube thing we did with Craig Cairns last week. To begin with, I was like, yeah, I was sold on the idea, I completely understood it, and then kind of more leaning towards not really, because it seems, I think Warnock probably gets more benefit out of it than Aberdeen do. But if he just keeps them ticking over and allows them I think the way obviously this is how everything happens. The way to judge it was once it's finished, and if Aberdeen have taken it upon themselves to actually use the time wisely to get up, to look ahead and say, like, this is the strategy, this is the structure, this is the manager we want, and that all works out. But between now and then, I just think there'll be loads of sound bites. I don't think he'll be a brilliant manager. Probably might just do enough for what Aberdeen need.
Fair enough.